Hello, I am back once again. Where have I been? Nowhere. What have I been doing? Nothing. But here I am again for another Wrasslin What If. Finally, I've come back to do this. And it's time to talk about another wrestler's career who was cut short way too soon from a back injury, no less. None other than the man, the myth, the legend, the great Kurt Hennig, aka Mr. Perfect. Now, around 91, it was 1991, yes. Mr. Perfect suffered a back injury. And at the time, he was the WWF Intercontinental Champion. And this back injury, it led to him losing the Intercontinental title to Bret Hart. But in addition to that, it led to him basically being a part-time wrestler, not even necessarily a part-time, a sporadic wrestler for years. He really didn't wrestle a full-time schedule until he left for WCW in 97. He stayed with WWF for about 6 years. And even then, he didn't necessarily wrestle all the time, but he wrestled enough that I would consider full-time, so I would have to assume his back was feeling better to some extent. But basically, this back injury, it came at the worst time because he just came to WWF. He'd spent years in a lot of other companies, especially the AWA. He came at the tail end of the 80s. Had a pretty good run, had that perfect record where he was undefeated. Famously was doing all the stuff with the throwing the football pass himself and making a basketball shot from without looking from behind. You know, the skits with all these awesome, amazing stuff. It made him seem absolutely perfect. And he did have some great matches after 91. He did in WWF too. Specifically in 1993, he had two bangers. He had the one against Ric Flair on Monday Night Raw. The loser leaves WWF. The first real great match on Monday Night Raw. Easily. And a great main event too. If you haven't watched that, go watch it. I believe it's the third episode of Raw. Yes, okay. And a match at the King of the Ring against Bret Hart. A match that I think is a lot better than the match he had at SummerSlam against Bret Hart. I think they tell a better story. I think they do some different things, and it's a lot of fun. And he had, other than that, he really didn't wrestle too many matches after that. I think it was just a match against Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam, and he did show up every once in a while. He was doing commentary. He had a brief storyline with Hunter Simsley, Triple H, of course, but when he was Hunter. And then he just kind of left, and he did WCW, he did pretty well. He had the U.S. title run, he had the feud with Ric Flair, he had some good matches there, but they weren't, in my opinion, as good as what could have been. So, I thought, what if we just changed things up? And he never hurt us back in 91. Now, I'm not going to book this beyond WCW. I'm going to stop it at WCW. So, in this reality, he's still going to go to WCW. So, he still has that thing in 97. Which, maybe if his back hadn't got hurt, maybe that wouldn't happen. I don't know. But I'm going to pretend like this reality he's still did, So, let's start out. So, he suffered a back injury. But, at SummerSlam, he's still scheduled for a match against Bret Hart with the Intercontinental title line. And he still does lose to Bret Hart. And despite him not having a back injury, we are told after SummerSlam that he did have a back injury going into the match. And he had short notice to prepare for Bret Hart. And this becomes like his excuse. And also in the build-up to Survivor Series, we found out he's fired the coach, his manager, from SummerSlam to Survivor Series. So for SummerSlam to Survivor Series in 1991, Bret Hart's getting the title defense. Occasionally we see, promos from Mr. Perfect where he says it was his back. Bret Hart took advantage of him. And also the fact that he had little time to prepare. And he also blames the coach for accepting the match. And then he claims he never asked him. So he says, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still the Intercontinental Champion. But Bret, don't worry. You get to have it for just a little while longer. That's something he says in one of these promos. Now, at Survivor Series, we have a little segment here. Not a match, where Mr. Perfect comes out in a suit and tie in the middle of the ring, and he says, now you get to witness the perfect return. And this was a Survivor Series where Macho Man might have been reinstated in the storyline because Jake the Snake Roberts had attacked him with the snake. Famous moment, by the way. And we're going to kind of tease that Mr. Perfect basically starts talking about how, oh, you people, I know you wanted Randy Savage here, but first of all, Mr. Perfect's always been better than the Macho Man. You know, get some booze there, and he says, and second of all, you know that gutless coward. He didn't have the guts to show. He didn't have the courage to show his face here. And, you know, if it was me and that snake bit me, I would have been back in just 2 days. But he's laying up, all beat up, crying. He's all in pain. We all know it's a lie. It's a joke. And he says something like, you know, Jack Tunney, he offered me a spot on either Jake the Snake Roberts or the team that Macho Man was on, the team that Sid was on, because Sid was hurt at this point. And he says, now I would have valiantly took that spot. But, as I point out to Jack Tunney, you don't have a star like me wrestle on such short notice. And then he starts saying, so I want to say here that although I did great things for the Intercontinental Championship, I held it 2 times. I made it special. I made it have meaning after I'd lost so much from some paper champions. But now I set my sights higher to be the perfect champion as I make my return. I want to be the WWF World Heavyweight Champion. He says, so Hogan, Undertaker, it doesn't matter to me who wins. I'm not afraid of death, and I've beaten you before, Hogan. I will face either one of you, and I will win the title. And he says 2 more things he brings out. He mentions that he says, I have one man to thank for helping me rid the strength and the courage and the wisdom to come back like this. And ladies and gentlemen, my new manager, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Bring him out to the chorus of booze. Gets to the ring, he takes a bow, and he says, man, then Brain takes over and he says, you know, Mr. Perfect, you're such a great athlete and competitor that I understand we've taken a special challenge at this Tuesday in Texas. There's a pay-per-view coming up, I think like a week after this pay-per-view as far as we've known. Yeah. He says, you're going to take on any schlub who wants to think they have a chance of beating Mr. Perfect. An open challenge at this Tuesday in Texas. And that way, you have free matches at least promoted for Tuesday in Texas instead of 2. Even though I still feel that pay-per-view was a big waste of time. But we're just going to act like, you know, they did it anyway, so let's do it like they did it. You know, you know, fuck's sake, if this is a bad idea, we're just going to do it. But this time, Tuesday in Texas is going to look a little different from the actual card we got. So I'm going to make it better. Now, first of all, it's not going to be 1.5 hours with 90 minutes, which was a plan that leave with the original. It's going to be 2 hours, about a solid 2 hours. And in this 2 hours, we're going to get Bret Hart is not going to defend the title against Skinner, the Intercontinental. No, it's going to be Ted DiBiase this time, because that would be a great match. Give them 10, 15 minutes of work. I get to tell a great story. British Bulldog still takes on the Warlord. That's fine. But the tag team match we get, it's going to be different. It's going to be Skinner and the Repo Man teaming up, because they both like taking stuff, I guess, against the team of the Rockers, who at this point are still a pretty top babyface team, but are starting to have their dissension angle. And, of course, Macho and Jake the Snake, Hogan and Undertaker in the main event for the WWF title. But, in the third match on the card, right after Bulldog Warlord, Mr. Perfect comes out with Bobby Heenan for an open challenge. And he says, how about you send out anybody who has the guts to face me, who's in a coward? And then somebody comes out and he says, and Bobby Heenan gets back and says, of course, when I fall, nobody here is ready to face perfection. That's fine. Referee, how about you declare this a victory for Mr. Perfect, because it's clearly a forfeit. And they go for a whole spiel. They're going, he doesn't want to declare anything about it. But then out of nowhere, out comes a wrestler by the name of Owen Hart. Now, Owen Hart at this point I don't think was hired by WWF. But for the purpose of throwing, I'm going to say he got rehired just for at least the time being until the Royal Rumble. Or he can probably be on that. Anyway, Owen Hart comes out. Mr. Perfect goes, I don't even know who you are. Why don't you tell me, kid? Who do you think you are? You're good enough to beat Mr. Perfect. And he says, well, I'm Owen Hart. I'm the brother of Bret Hart. And he's Intercontinental Champion. And he already beat you. So I know I can beat you, you know. And he says, I beat you here today in front of everybody and show them all that this is my time to make it in the World Wrestling or something like that. You know, kind of a generic babyface promo. And just give these two like 10 minutes to tell a story. But in the end, Perfect wins to the Perfect Plex. Because it doesn't hurt Owen to take a loss here. And it helps Perfect build Perfect up as this kind of cocky babyface. Now, basically in the lead up to the Royal Rumble, Perfect can work the house show circuits or whatever if you want to go that way. He faces basically either Marty Jannetty or Shawn Michaels, really building up the tension between the Rockers' breakup, and also giving Shawn Michaels a chance to work some good singles matches, because why not? You know, and then we build to the Royal Rumble match itself. Now, it is just like real life. It's for the WWE Championship. And it comes down to Sid, Hogan, Ric Flair, and Mr. Perfect. Now, the Perfect and Flair don't have any sort of association, but they're both heels. And Bobby Heenan is managing both. So they have that association, but they haven't really teamed up or anything. So the two of them team up here and try to take out Sid and Hogan. Hogan starts fighting back. But in the end, he goes for a boot on Perfect, who boos, and out goes Sid. Hogan is immediately distraught. He doesn't know what to think. So he's like, they'll say, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that, brother. Oh, you're my friend." And Hogan almost gets dumped out by Flair and Perfect. They get the double legs over and they start celebrating. But he gets in, he starts kicking their ass. And Hogan, he goes to grab Flair. He goes to grab Flair, but he gets he goes to grab Perfect. He gets shot blocked by Flair. Flair starts going for the freaking forward, but he gets kicked off and pushed into the turnbuckle post, as you do. And then he ends up turning around and getting closed out of the Rumble. Then Flair gets behind Hogan. He starts going for the leg, but Hogan starts fighting him off. He starts chopping him. He goes up to body slam him. Then Flair is able to rake the eyes, and then outside of the ring, where Mr. Perfect has gone up, he grabs Hogan's head, grabs him like a suplex, and then Flair grabs him, and then together they throw him out of the Royal Rumble. Flair has won the Royal Rumble in the WWE Championship, but Mr. Perfect has screwed Hogan. For the purpose of our story, that's the more important point. And also after this, you could probably have Sid kind of feud with Flair on house shows if you wanted. So you could save Hogan and Flair. Now, in this reality, we're still doing Hogan and Flair. Believe it or not, you know, that match would be great. But in my opinion, you know, you should have did it really. But I'm just going to do it different. We still get Flair and Macho for a title. And we get in the main event, Hogan and Mr. Perfect. Because why not? And we can tease it as Hogan's retirement match. Whatever you want to do. And in the end, Hogan gets the win. You know, because it's Hogan. He's got an ego shit. After the match. And anyways, it's realistic. You know, send the people home happy. Even though I don't like Hogan. But after the match, though, Flair comes out and starts attacking our Hogan. And then Hogan fights him off briefly. But then he gets attacked by Perfect. And they start beating him down. And they get a chair. They get some steel chairs. Start working over his legs. He's getting beat down bad. All of a sudden, that returns the Ultimate Warrior. Same ending without Papa Shango. And the only thing here is Sid isn't on the card, I guess. But if you really are a Sid Mark, you can find Sid Mark. Fuck Shoik. Find a spot for him on the card. Like maybe he wrestles Hercules in a squash match or something in the middle of the card. You know, whatever. It's fine. Anyway, after this though, Hogan leaves WWF like he really did. Mr. Perfect starts becoming the top heel, which he was. And at SummerSlam, by SummerSlam time, he's gotten some pretty big wins, and he's scheduled the number one contender for Macho Man's WWF Championship. And at SummerSlam, Macho wins clean. Then after SummerSlam, we start building to the Survivor Series match between Flair and Razor Ramon against Macho, the Ultimate Maniacs. And Perfect is still aligned with, now they have alignment with Razor and Flair. They don't have a team name for this team, but they're very Horseman-esque. So they're all aligned together. And Perfect, for his part, he originally has he ran the match Survivor Series against, let's say, Coco, who was around this time? The Big Boss Man. Like, he has a match with the Big Boss Man schedule, WrestleMania rematch from a few years before that. But anyway, but that happens just like real life, where he gets fired. Perfect turns face, because all it is keeping in tone with the real stuff that happened. They have the tag match they had with Mr. Perfect and Macho Man versus Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. But one thing changes here. Mr. Perfect, he hits the Perfect Plex on Ric Flair, pinning him, winning the match. That leads to the big feud between the two. And in the Royal Rumble, it comes down to Macho Man Yokozuna, Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, Yokozuna. The three of them work together to take him out. But then Macho Man starts fighting Flair. Perfect just kind of sits back for a little bit and thinks about it and doesn't do anything. Then, eventually, after Ric Flair was watching about, the two start fighting, and he's able to throw out Ric Flair, winning the Royal Rumble, getting himself a WWF World Championship title match. And just like in real life, on the Raw, I think right after right after the Royal Rumble, he beats Ric Flair, sending him out of WWF. And now around this time, Mr. Perfect starts acting a little more heelish. He doesn't cheat, but he starts cutting promos where he starts about how he's going to prove that everybody's better than Bret, and he knows what it needs to be, what it takes to be a champion. And he hasn't forgotten Bret beating him. That's a motivator. And also he says, I'm willing to go as far as I need to because I'm perfect. Bret, you might be excellent, but you aren't willing to do what needs to be done. Even the dirty, down, disgusting stuff. And Brett fires back with something like, well, of course, Mr. Perfect, you think that because you know you can't beat me. That's your problem. You don't have what it takes. You don't have the intestinal fortitude. Now I think I could bring out the best in you. But if you have to go that low and sink to that level to beat me, what does it really say about you? I want you perfect. I want you to try to beat me, something like that. Basic stuff. WrestleMania, Bret Hart retains here. So even though Mr. Perfect, at this point I don't think he needs the WF Championship, but anyway. So Bret, after the match, they shake hands or whatever. And then we start building to, not a whole lot here, it's just the King of the Ring, basically. Mr. Perfect wants to win the King of the Ring. Now, Bret is still champ. But at WrestleMania, Yokozuna beat Tatanka, ending Tatanka's streak, and Yokozuna's not undefeated. Aside from his rare Rumble loss, he's this big monster. So we do get Bret and Yokozuna at the King of the Ring. Now, you might be asking, what's Hogan doing all this because he returned to WrestleMania? He basically is doing what he did in real life. He had the tag team title match. Now, does he have a match at King of the Ring? No. Because, just like in real life, he's going to leave, but he leaves before King of the Ring. He doesn't even show up. He basically leaves after WrestleMania. You don't see him except house shows. Because it doesn't fucking really matter. It's Hogan. He didn't do a whole lot anyway. He just wrestled the same tag match over and over and over again. If you like Hogan, that's fine. But, it's not like anything to write home about. Well, Mr. Perfect, though, because Bret Hart now has to deal with Yokozuna, we don't get the thing with him and King of the Ring, him and Jerry the King Lawler. So instead, Mr. Perfect wins the King of the Ring, beating Bam Bam Bigelow. And you could still do the Jerry Lawler feud, I guess, but I feel like after King of the Ring, you could just make Bret do that, because Bret loses here to Yokozuna. And that starts setting up Yokozuna and the Macho Man for SummerSlam. Now, this time, I'm trying to think of who the heels were. See the wheels spinning in my mind? You feel that? There were not a lot of strong heels WWF at this time. Aside from Shawn Michaels. So we're going to do the real match they did at SummerSlam. Only it's going to change a little bit, because let's have Mr. Perfect win the Intercontinental title, because why not? He hasn't had a big win aside from the King of the Ring. Well, this year he won the Rumble and the King of the Ring. So this is a big year for him, so let's give him the Intercontinental title again. And as far as I'm concerned, he can lose it back to Shawn, that's fine. I mean, you also have the thing with Razor, Shawn getting spin it. So what I think could happen here is have him hold it for a couple months. Shawn wins it back, like right before the real life suspension he suffered. And let's say in September he wins it, so about a month after he lost it. Because it doesn't really hurt Perfect. He's a three-time champ, and at this point in his career, it's weird to say he's whining it now because he's only been in it come like 3 years, but he's done so much it doesn't really hurt him. You could have Diesel also cheat to help him win, if you want to protect him. And then after that, the thing with suspension and Razor and Shawn start their feud. And after this, we get a feud started between Mr. Perfect and I'm trying to figure who's left on the roster that's a heel. Ooh, a good heel. It can't be Crush because you need him to feud with Macho Man. Can't be Shawn because he's going for Razor. We'll do a really strange sounding feud, but it's Jeff Jarrett. It's because he's a good wrestler. Because this is always leading to a feud at WrestleMania between Jarrett and Perfect. And I'm skipping a few pay-per-views, but Survivor Series, just put him on a team. It doesn't really matter where, just with the faces. Here at WrestleMania, Jeff Jarrett gets a win over Mr. Perfect. Basically, to kind of establish Jarrett. And after that, where he's tricky, I'm trying to think. Because at this point, he definitely was not really appearing as much. So after this, I would have him actually slowly turning back heel. Basically, the idea being that he feels like he's not perfect anymore. He feels like he needs to become himself whole again. And he starts a feud with Lex Luger. Now, this feud would be weird because it's going to be based in reality, and I don't know how the fans would actually react, but he basically would keep shit-talking Lex Luger and telling them, you failed America, you're a fucking disgrace, you do not represent America, you're a loser. You didn't deserve to get a title shot because you did all that shit, all that stuff. Yes, you do. And this all leads to a match at SummerSlam. Now, in the meantime, Perfect can wrestle against, Rick Martel. He's kind of floating around. I love Mr. Perfect. There's just not that many heels here, and it's hard to come up with a good feud with him. I probably would put a brief feud with him and Crush at the King of the Ring. Maybe he tries to become two-time King of the Ring, and he faces Crush, and then he beats him, but he loses the next round. But I don't know. whoever we have as a heel. He can lose Owen Hart next time. Yeah, that works for me. Yeah, then Owen beats Razor. Kind of like he did in real life. But anyway, better than Tonka. But anyway, Tonka. But anyway, so Mr. Perfect. Also, Mr. Perfect had a good match with Doink in real life on a Raw. I really enjoyed the match. So go check that out too if you get a chance. Like, let me if you're Raw. Anyway, and it was Matt Bourne. No, you're massive Matt Bourne Mark Sora. I like Matt Bourne too. He's cool. Badass. Anyway, we get to SummerSlam and it's Perfect and Luger, who's basically at this point he's kind of low in the roster, but they have a pretty good match. And in the end, Perfect wins with the Perfect Plex. And right after this, why not have Perfect just do what all the heels were doing back then, all the rage in the WWF in 1984. He joins the $1 Million Corporation. Because I feel like he would fit well in that group. And it would make more sense having him than, say, Tatanka or Nikolai Volkov. No disrespect, but you compare the star power there. And this leads to a pretty good tag team pairing of Mr. Perfect and Bam Bam Bigelow. I don't have a name for him. Nothing like Perfect Beast. That was so stupid. Maybe just like the $1 Million... Not team, but $1 Million Perfection. I don't know. Anyway, at some point, they win the tag team titles. They actually win them from Shawn and Diesel. We'll say that what happened was like Shawn and Diesel. They won them from Shawn and Diesel, and then before the whole turn of Shawn and Diesel, and then after that, we'll make up a story. We'll find out like something happened that Shawn and Diesel won them back before the breakup. So they hold them for like about a couple of weeks. They lose back. Then Shawn and Diesel do the same shit they did. They break up real life. Shawn's hurt. So we get them in the tag team tournament, and at the Royal Rumble, similar to what happened in real life, they lose to the 1-2-3 Kid. It's Sparkplug, although this time it's not Tonka. It's Perfect, and it's Bam Bam getting pinned the same way. And he lasts Laura Taylor, pushes Laura Taylor, all that stuff that we did. They did. They did. And at this point, I would have a big WrestleMania match that they never made. And even though at this point it's kind of past its prime, but I feel like it's still working. That's Roddy Piper, Perfect. And it's an easy feud to set up. You just have a Piper's Pit with Mr. Perfect and Roddy. Well, Roddy asks him why he joined the Million Corporation is that he feels he doesn't have what it takes anymore to make it in the WWF. And he feels he's past his prime. He's not perfect anymore, damn it. That's why you had to take the man on man's money. That's why you had to sink that low and be his little bootlegger. And then, Perfect gets mad. He throws a stool and he gets right in Perfect's face. I'm nobody's bootlegger. I'm Perfect. And Piper, you're just mad because you haven't done half of the things I've done in the World Wrestling Federation. And also, I beat the piss out of your boy, Bret Hart, Something like that. Maybe he doesn't say piss, but anyway. So, WrestleMania, Perfect and Roddy Piper. And Perfect is getting the win here. No doubt. He's done too many jobs. I mean, in this story anyway. It's like 3 jobs in a row. I love Mr. Perfect. That's not necessarily something I enjoy, but for the purpose of the story, he did 3. Now he's going to beat Mr. Piper. He beats Piper. After that, he sticks around the $1 Million Corporation for basically what's left of his WWF career to some extent. Because the $1 Million Corporation was falling apart right around 95. They were pretty much done. They were done-ski. But he sticks around long enough to have the 1-2-3 Kid and Sid join, and he gets a title shot against Diesel in Diesel's face on the one pay-per-view. Because why not? You could get way more out of him. Maybe at the pay-per-view in July when he gets the shot there. He loses, but that's when, I would have one spot where he goes for the Perfect Plex on Diesel and he gets the arm hooked around his leg and he picks him up briefly, but then he can't hold him. He falls, he holds his back, and then he brings up, his back injury's happening again. The same that caused an Intercontinental title before. And then right after that, he gets kicked in the gut. Jackknife. Easy finish. Then at SummerSlam, we would get a match between Mr. Perfect and Bam Bam Bigelow. Basically, the feud between former $1 Million, current $1 Million, Mr. Perfect, and also the King of the Ring match. Bam Bam gets the win here. And Bam Bam, if they're in this reality, doesn't leave the WWE that fast, but anyway. Perfect, he sticks around, and he's still in the $1 Million Corporation when Stone Cold, 1-2-3 Kid joined. So you have a pretty goated $1 Million Corporation at this point, I think. So we'll skip ahead a little bit all the way to WrestleMania 12. And there's a 6-man tag with Perfect, the 1-2-3 Kid, and Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Savio Vega and the Smoking Guns. Because why not? And in the end, the $1 Million Corp wins, with Stone Cold hitting the Stone Cold Stunner on Savio Vega. And after this, he basically spends the rest of his WWF career. Shortly after this, Ted still leaves WWF just like real life. Perfect start to brief feud with Savio Vega, where he beats Savio to get revenge. He went and beats him on a pay-per-view at the King of the Ring to get revenge for Stone Cold. This is not a tournament, it's a regular match. And after that, and then in the SummerSlam, he has a feud with, again, now we have the opposite problem. Who's the faces here? Ooh, who was the face of 96 WWF? That was pretty good. Besides Shawn. Brett was out, couldn't be him, so who do we have left? Damn, there's not a lot of good people I can think of, because the Warrior was gone. Ah, fuck. Razor was gone. Dude, like, what? Who was the guys, man? Taker was the only one, but he's feuding with Mankind. I can't get him Taker. But, I would have him take on Taker at the Bulgaria Dogma pay-per-view instead of Goldust. Just because. So, anyway. I don't know who to... I guess he skipped SummerSlam because I don't really know who to put him against. Because there's not a whole lot of good faces, is there? Like, Baby Sid, maybe he can have a good match. I think he could probably get a pretty decent match on Sid. Why not? Just make it fight Sid. Doesn't have to be a long match. And then at the next pay-per-view, he faces Taker again. Taker gets the win. And then, basically, that's kind of it for him as his career. He doesn't do a whole lot more in WWF till he goes WCW. He doesn't... I was going to say in storyline purposes, he takes off the rest of the year. Makes sporadic appearances, kind of, before he goes to WCW. Partially because I don't know how to fucking do this. But anyway, that's how I build it up. I'd have him win a Rumble, win a King of the Ring, win a House of Title again, have all these different feuds that we didn't get, like with him and the Macho. And some we did get, but we get them a little different, and him and Bam Bam also would probably be good. That's about as far as I can go. I'm trying to think, would I give him one last Mania appearance at WrestleMania 13? Like, I would think you could do a pretty good Mania match there. Who were the faces then? Sheet. Rocky Maivia. So, The Rock, but he was not a good Rock. Oh, man. 97 WF. Oof. It got better as the year went on, but it started out pretty bad. He would have one last feud in WWF before he leaves. I'll say with Ken Shamrock, because that'd be a good little feud. They have a pay-per-view match at the what the fuck? The King of the Ring, they have a match. Which Shamrock Rock wins when he taps out the ankle lock. And anyway, that's it for the Bang. And after that, right after that, he leaves, goes to WCW, because that's like right around the time he actually went. Anyway. Also, he does take part in the European title tournament, in case you're wondering, so we see him in that. But he loses at some point to, let's say, British Bulldog. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.